Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, the West African nation of Ivory Coast may have changed its laws so as to allow women to inherit property and assets from their late spouses, but the message is still sadly not getting through to its population. Also, have you noticed how the dulcet tones of our smart home devices all happen to be female and rather obliging? I'll be talking to Dr. Ivory Coast, a digital sociologist and co-author of The Smart Wife, Why Alexa and Other Devices Need a Feminist Reboot. And the campaign to end period poverty in China by ensuring millions of women gain access to sanitary products. But we begin in the West African nation of Ivory Coast, where new laws are allowing women to inherit their late husband's assets and property. Women's inheritance is a thorny issue in a number of African countries. For instance, it's not unusual in some cultures for the women and children to be handed over to the husband's family if he dies. But even if laws are changed, as is the case in Ivory Coast, the reality is that very few actually know about it, as our reporters found out.
Many women work the fields of Ivory Coast, but rare are those who, like Madeleine, manage their own plantations. She now owns one of the most beautiful houses in the village. Madeleine inherited the land after the death of her father.
Parce que l'aîné ne veut pas venir au village. Donc je ne pouvais pas laisser comme ça. Si je laisse ça comme ça, si d'autres personnes prennent, c'est pas bon. Je suis venue, j'ai planté ça. J'ai planté les verres. Le travail du champ, c'est pas une mince affaire, c'est très difficile. Mais j'ai pu faire ça.
Madeleine is living in a man's world. According to the customs of her region, women do not inherit land from their fathers. But today she's respected by all the other farmers. She was ahead of her time. In 2019, a law was passed allowing women across the country to claim inheritance, but few people know about it.
Il y a des lois même qui existent en Côte d'Ivoire que nous ne connaissons pas. Nos députés, là, les gens que nous élisons, qui vont à l'Assemblée nationale, ils ne prennent pas la peine de nous expliquer ce qui se passe dans l'hémicycle.
In Abidjan, Ivory Coast economic capital, some people are working hard to bridge this knowledge gap. André Fessaline is a legal advisor and posts videos to her Facebook page to inform Ivorians about the law. She has thousands of followers online.
Bienvenue dans le lexique juridique. Aujourd'hui, nous allons parler de l'ordre des successibles dans le cadre d'une succession légale. Depuis 2013 en Côte d'Ivoire, il y a eu énormément d'avancées juridiques. Tant sur la loi du mariage que même sur la loi des successions, c'est bien. Maintenant, il faut que les citoyens ivoiriens se sentent concernés. Une veuve aujourd'hui qui sait qu'elle peut hériter au même titre que ses enfants, qui ne va pas ouvrir une succession en bonne et due forme et laisser le juge partager la succession, qui se fait tout arracher. Aujourd'hui, moi, j'ai mal parce que le droit la priorise, mais elle ne va pas bénéficier de cette loi.
Ivorian women are often victims to tradition. While the laws themselves may be improving, more education is needed for women to be able to fully exercise their rights.
Now, more and more of us are using artificial intelligence in our daily lives. I'm talking about those smart devices such as Siri and Alexa. But have you ever wondered why they all use female voices? Joining me now is Dr. Ivory Coast, a digital sociologist at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, and co-author of The Smart Wife, Why Siri, Alexa and Other Smart Home Devices Need a Feminist Reboot. Thanks for your time, but let me start with the obvious question. Why are female voices being used by these devices?
Sure, I guess the most obvious answer to that is that a female voice is more likable and more kind of likely for us to accept the device and accept these artificial intelligence into our everyday lives. So, and the reason for that is basically that it conforms to the gender stereotypes of who we expect to do the kinds of administrative and housework that are associated with these devices.
Is it also the case that the people who are designing this technology happen to be men?
That's certainly one of the reasons for it as well, yes. So there's a couple of things going on. So there's that likability that I mentioned before, and kind of making sure that we accept these devices into our lives in a non-threatening way. But then there are the more particular aspects of femininity that we see on display in some of these devices. They have a very kind of demure personality. They're often quite subservient. They're often respond in a, let's say, a kind of accepting way to various forms of sexual advancement. And there are some biases there in terms of who are designing these technologies and the kinds of femininity that's imagined and designed into these devices that does reflect the male bias in the industry.
And why is it so damaging to use a female voice?
I think whenever we're sort of taking a gender stereotype, designing it into a device or a series of devices en masse, and then using that in our homes, we have, certain things that we need to be aware of and concerned about. And one of those is that we have the potential then to reinforce those gender stereotypes in the home. So in the case of digital voice assistants, the feminisation of them reflects the kind of gender roles and responsibilities that these devices are intended to do, but it also reinforces those. So we have, all of these feminised devices kind of reinforcing the idea that it is women's job, it's the female job to come in and do various forms of administrative and house kind of tasks around the place.
Yolanda, you've also talked about another trait of Alexa, which I decided to see for myself at home. Hey Alexa, apologise.
I'm really sorry.
So I see there that Alexa is programmed to even apologise when it's not even at fault.
That's right. And if you continue to ask Alexa over and over again, she'd continue to oblige and continue to apologise without asking for explanation, without asking for reason, without kind of inquiring as to what she's apologising for. And I think that also sends a sort of disturbing message about the role of women in society. And the companies that are using gender in this way to make the personality more likeable, to make us accept them, there's a certain, again, responsibility that they have around what effects that could have in our everyday lives. And in the case of Alexa apologising, my concern there is that a woman who is constantly apologising is often associated with somebody who's been made to feel worthless in, say, a domestic violence situation, who is in fact in a domestic abuse situation, or is, in some other way under coercive control in a relationship. And they're not attributes that I think that we should be, hardwiring into our devices. And we also talk about why at this moment in time these devices are becoming more popular and more kind of accepted into our lives. And of course, it's because of, this massive shift that's been going on as women have entered the workforce, and we've seen declining rates of available women to do the kinds of wife work that was traditionally associated and responsible by women. So it's kind of understandable that we have all this kind of new technology entering into the home to take up this work. And while that's not necessarily a problem in itself, I think there are bigger societal questions to ask ourselves about whether this is the best response. Are robots the best solution to the lack of kind of aged care that's now available? Are they the best way of addressing the gender disparity in who does the housework in the home? And these are really important questions we should be talking about and asking ourselves, rather than just sort of assuming that we can handle all this to technology to do that work for us.
Dr. Yolanda Strengas, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Turning now to China, which has made great strides to eradicate extreme poverty. But one topic remains largely unaddressed, and that is menstruation. For the millions of Chinese women who lack access to sanitary products, breaking down taboos about menstrual health is essential in order to combat period poverty. Our correspondents in China sent us this report.
No woman should feel ashamed of menstruating, period. That's the message from Luna Naturals, who make organic menstrual products in China. They also campaign against period poverty.
Do you guys know what period poverty is?
It means a lack of sanitary pads, using sanitary pads of low quality.
Employee Chun Le can draw upon first-hand experience for these workshops.
When I first got my period, I used tissues or very basic sanitary pads without adhesive wings because it was cheap. Gradually, I realized that I needed to change the pad regularly or it would feel uncomfortable.
These women believe that raising awareness is essential if any progress is to be made. And Luna is not the only one fighting period poverty. Students have installed free sanitary pad dispensers in over 500 university campuses. Online, the grassroots campaign has attracted more than 100 million views and 86,000 comments. But they have their work cut out for them. Dr. Dai Wangyun is an expert on Chinese medical folklore and women's health. She says that in China, menstruation has long been taboo, which gives rise to misinformation.
There is an old wives' tale that says if you take painkillers during your period, you will become stupid and infertile.
Women learn mostly from their mothers and peers, but not all information gets through. Dr. Dai, for instance, had never seen a tampon before living abroad.
If nobody had told me, I wouldn't have known about it. Menstruation is like a little secret between girlfriends. While China is making efforts to eliminate poverty and boost the development of underdeveloped areas, there has been little progress in alleviating women's period poverty.
But with the new generation of Chinese women unwilling to stay silent, that looks set to change.
And that's it for this edition. You can also connect with us via our Facebook page, that of course being France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. So until our next show, bye for now.